The marine iguana, Amblyrhynchus cristatus. The marine iguana came to the Galapagos Islands millions of years ago, but not in the species they are now. It's thought that an iguana species caught a ride on some debris from the mainland to the Galapagos. Then, about 4.5 million years ago, the iguanas on the island evolved into marine iguanas that we know of today. The marine iguana is a member of the family Iguanidae, and its binomial name is Amblyrhynchus cristatus. The species that the marine iguana evolved from was the Galapagos land iguana, Canophilus subcristatus. The marine iguana, Amblyrhynchus cristatus, is the world's only marine lizard, with the species spending time divided between land and sea. The marine iguana is darkish gray to black in color, with juveniles having a light stripe on their side. They are distinguished from land iguanas in many ways, which we'll get to later in the presentation. They are also efficient swimmers, which will also be discussed more in detail in the coming slides. The species is found in the Galapagos Islands archipelago, off the coast of South America, and can be seen on Ecuador's coastline. When not in the water, they frequent sandy beaches or rocky shorelines, often observed basking to regulate their body temperatures. The marine iguana is found widely distributed across the islands with varying morphology. Size and color differentiate across the islands, resulting in subspecies. Marine iguanas are a sexually dimorphic species. Males tend to be larger at around 4.3 feet long, and females smaller at around 2 feet long. In addition to intersexual differences, these reptiles also exhibit interspecies differences in average size. Studies have shown that the reason for the range in body size is likely a result of the characteristics of the specific island they inhabit. For example, relative island temperature and size have both been shown to influence the size of the iguanas. Marine iguanas have a blunt snout, which is one of the traits that distinguishes them from most terrestrial iguanas, who have a pointed snout to some degree. Another trait that sets them apart from their terrestrial relatives is their laterally compressed tail. This trait evolved as a result of their aquatic environment, as it helps them move in water. The claws on A. cristatus are longer, sharper, and more curved than those on terrestrial iguanas. These claws are specialized for gripping onto volcanic rock underwater. The diet of marine iguanas primarily consists of red and green algae. The two described foraging strategies for these reptiles are subtidal feeding and intertidal feeding. Subtidal feeding occurs when the iguanas swim out into the ocean to scavenge for algae in the water column, and intertidal feeding occurs when they forage for algae close to shore in the intertidal zone. Intertidal feeding occurs during low tide when the algae is exposed and easily accessible. Studies have shown that smaller individuals tend to be intertidal feeders, and larger individuals tend to forage in the subtidal zone.
As mentioned before, marine iguanas are endemic to the Galapagos Islands. Their habitat consists of volcanic rock on and off the shore. They spend lots of time in the intertidal zones and shallow waters. They are usually seen basking on the rocks in the sun all day long. The average lifespan for a marine iguana is 12 years old. However, there have been some iguanas documented as old as 60. Females become sexually mature at 3 to 5 years old, while males are a bit behind and mature at 6 to 8 years old. As mentioned previously, a unique feature is foraging exclusively in cold seas. Iguanas eat the algae growing on the rocks, and since all lizards cannot regulate their internal temperature, they must bask in the sun both before and after diving for food to stay warm enough to survive. This activity is much of their day. The normal dark skin color also aids in heat absorption. When their body temperature is low, they become sluggish and vulnerable to predators. To combat this, these lizards display a highly aggressive behavior as a bluff to the predators. However, once back in the sun, they are a relatively gentle and docile animal. As the seasons change, their body size changes as well. During the year's hotter time, the sea increases in temperature and the number of edible algae decreases. This is the time when mating begins, since the iguanas are stocked with energy they got from the previous cold season. When an El Niño year occurs, however, this can be detrimental to multiple populations. El Niño brings warmer climate year-round, which limits the food source significantly. During this time, the marine iguana can shrink its body size up to 20% to conserve energy. 10 to 90% of marine iguanas can die during these events, causing extreme population fluctuations in this species. As mentioned on the previous slide, the mating season occurs during the hottest time of the year, which is December through June, when food supply is at the lowest. But these iguanas have prepared for this and stocked up until plump with algae during the dry season, which is July through November. The nesting season occurs January through April. Females spend most of the breeding season searching for the perfect nest. They will go around sandy spots or spots full of volcanic ash looking for a nice, soft, safe place. They normally search 300 meters inland and dig 30 to 80 centimeter holes for their nests. Males normally stay put and defend their mating territories. A huge physical descriptor of a male ready to mate is the change from dark to vibrant colors on its skin. The colors can vary between species, but the most common is teal or red. Males also depict head bobbing as a physical behavior. A charged bobbing signal indicates to other animals that a creature is prepared for mating and territory defense. This brings other males to challenge them through headbutting, and fights can last up to 4 hours. The mating process is intense. The male must grab hold of the female's neck in order to climb on top of her. He then will use one of his 2 penises to penetrate the female and inseminate her. If she tries to get away, he will bite down on her neck to keep her still. Mating lasts 3 to 4 minutes. Males are also polygynous, which means that males have many female partners and will continue to find as many mates to breed as possible until the season ends. Once the female has mated for that breeding season, she will not mate again until the next one. Approximately 5 weeks after mating occurs, the female will lay 1 to 6 eggs in her nest that she built during the nesting season. The eggs are white, oval-shaped, and have a soft, leathery texture. She will guard her nest for 3 to 5 days, and if she feels it is safe enough, then the eggs will incubate for approximately 95 days or roughly 3 months. After incubation, the hatchlings emerge from the nest and immediately sprint to the rocks for protection. The rocks help camouflage the baby marine iguanas from several predators. Sometimes the iguana will run bipedally to escape active predators on its way to the rocks. The hatchlings no longer have parental care and must fend for themselves. Usually the time of hatching matches up with large algal blooms, so the babies feed during low tide while the adults feed during high tide to leave some for the young. While parents do not protect their young specifically, these iguanas live in colonies for protection of all kinds. Reproduction normally occurs once every 2 years, however, it can occur every year if the food supply is sufficient. The food supply is the largest limiting factor for mating/reproduction since they need to increase their energy reserves. Marine iguanas have received the vulnerable status on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species as of December 2019. The population trend is decreasing as there are roughly 198 to 210,000 individuals. The marine iguana faces many threats. Some detrimental ones include the increase of global temperatures and the increase in feral animals. As mentioned previously, the populations have extreme fluctuations during El Niño years when water temperatures are warmer. This is due to an influx of brown algal growth that restricts the growth of green algae, which is their main food source. The brown algae is not easily digestible and can sometimes be toxic as well. The largest animals die off due to starvation. The average mortality for this time is 30 to 50%, with some records mentioning up to 90% of the population. Another threat is invasive predators such as cats, rats, and dogs. The presence of cats has been associated with less hatchling/juvenile survival, with the rates being extremely low at 1%. Where a predator-free environment, the survival rate is roughly 53%. In addition, the Galapagos Islands have experienced an overall increase in tourism. The number of tourists has increased 19-fold from the years 1979 to 2015, going from 11,000 to 225,000 tourists. This has shown an overall negative effect on endocrine response, immunological capability, and oxidative stress. The final threat is pollution from both cargo ships and residents on the islands. The increase in cargo ships has led to an obvious increase in pollutants, habitat degradation, and an increase in invasive species, including emergent mosquito-borne illnesses. In 2001, a tanker had a diesel and oil spill, which led to a mortality rate of 62% on Santa Fe Island. It is thought that ingestion of the oil killed the microbiome in the guts of the marine iguanas, which aided in digestion of algae, and without those microbes, the algae would be increasingly difficult to digest, causing starvation. Islands with permanent human settlements have increased municipal waste dump areas, which have leaked toxins such as dioxins and furans that have disrupted the endocrine system once again. An emerging threat to many marine animals is the increase of microplastic pollution. Unfortunately, there are few conservation efforts being done on the islands for marine iguanas. Due to an increase in tourism, many Ecuadorians fled to the Galapagos for tourism industry jobs. However, Ecuador enacted a new visa needed for travel to the Galapagos and implemented strict restrictions on who could move onto the island permanently. There have also been several eradication programs for the feral animals on the islands as well. In 1988, more hatchlings were recorded following the complete eradication of the black rats from Pinzon. The most recent victory was the January 2019 eradication of Norway rats. They used drones to apply bait laced with the anticoagulant rodenticide Brodifacoum at 25 parts per million. Recommended conservation efforts include improved knowledge of population size, trends, distribution, factors limiting population size, habitat trends, and invasive species management. Research to understand the impact of warming waters on individual algae species, along with other factors affecting algae community composition and iguana foraging dynamics, is also recommended. Some more recommendations include an increased understanding of the effect of widespread oceanic pollution, including oil spills and microplastics, on marine iguanas and their microbiota, as well as improved biosecurity measures to prevent disease introductions such as West Nile virus and avian malaria. Some special facts about marine iguanas include salt excretion, diving depths, special blood pigment, and mutualistic relationships. Since marine iguanas swim in the ocean, they have a variety of adaptations that aid in this. The first being special glands in the nose that filter the salt from the ocean water. To prevent dehydration, those salt crystals need to be expelled, and the iguana will sneeze to remove them from the glands inside their nostrils. Oftentimes, that salt gets trapped on their face and they have a white coloration on top of their heads. Another adaptation is a special blood pigment that allows the marine iguana to hold more oxygen in the blood and stay underwater for up to 40 minutes. They also dive up to 65 feet to get the algae growing on deeper rocks. This is mainly for adult iguanas, while the juveniles graze on the rocks nearer the surface. The marine iguana has a mutualistic relationship with one species, in particular the Sally Lightfoot crab. This crab has 10 legs and is incredibly agile at running across rough surfaces like the rock formation the iguanas live on. The crab cannot tell the difference between the rock and iguana due to camouflage, so the crab climbs on top of iguanas and eats mites. Both animals benefit since mites can be harmful for the iguanas and the crabs get a food source. The Galapagos finches also do this, but the crabs are more frequent mite eaters. Finally, Some locals of the Galapagos Islands nicknamed this iguana the Mini Godzilla for its uncanny resemblance for the fictional monster that destroys Japan. Thank you for watching our presentation on marine iguanas.